49ers 23-17. Unfortunately for the 49ers, they cannot afford many more of these no-shows in these types of games where they enter favored. Fortunately for the 49ers, it is very early in the marathon. They dropped the 1-1. They've got a game against the Rams next week, but it was a 4-play stretch in the second half of this game that really encapsulated how it went for the 49ers. First, special teams failed when Jacob Cowing muffed a punt. 49ers fell back on it, thankfully. But 2 plays later, Brock Purdy tried to fit the ball into a really tight window. It didn't seem like the 49ers were getting separation at all throughout the entire course of the afternoon, and that one tight window throw made him pay because the ball was knocked away, ended up intercepted by Vikings safety Josh Metellus. And then on the very next play, Sam Darnold, the former 49er, found Jalen Naylor, his receiver, for a touchdown, and Naylor had about 7 yards of separation away from Charvarius Ward, who was the nearest defender. So the Vikings seem to have a lot of separation all day, going back to a 97-yard touchdown from Darnold to Jefferson, where the 49ers were covering with 2 safeties. I don't know what that was about. I'll ask in the locker room, but you can't have a safety covering the best receiver in the game. There's got to be at least one corner on him. And for the rest of the game, 49ers did put at least one corner on Justin Jefferson. And then Jefferson left with an injury, and the 49ers still couldn't get off the field. So many 3rd and longs. It reminded me of 49ers game against Tennessee in 2021 when they repeatedly gave up 3rd and long to Ryan Tannehill and company. Today it was to Sam Darnold and company, even without Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, who missed this game altogether on the field. The Minnesota Vikings were able to just continue picking up those 3rd downs against San Francisco. It got ugly for the 49ers defensively in this game. They also, for much of the game, the Vikings were over 7 yards per carry. Sam Darnold escaped the pocket a few times running in the first half. 49ers are going to have to tighten things up defensively. The only bright spot for San Francisco, I think, defensively was Fred Warner. Fred Warner kept this game close by himself. First with the interception of Darnold on that, just cut that underneath throw off in the first half. And then Aaron Jones has fumbled only twice in his career. Shout out to Richard Sherman for that stat. And with the 49ers looking like they're going to get blown out and Aaron Jones rumbling toward the end zone, we saw Fred Warner knock the ball out again, the 13th forced fumble of his career. So, I said before this game was over, regardless of whether the 49ers win or lose, appreciate what you saw from Fred Warner today, because you're seeing a future Hall of Famer at work. You're seeing a great at work. At the end of the day, this is a Week 2 game. People probably won't remember a Week 2 game in the larger picture of things. It's a marathon, but people will remember Hall of Fame type of performances. And Fred Warner's doing that on a week-in, week-out basis for the 49ers. Obviously had a big one in Week 1 with the forced fumble as well. He was just fantastic today. Then there's Brock Purdy on the other side. So the 49ers have an issue here in that obviously they're not a great pass protecting team. We knew that going in. What they do to try to overcome that is, they try to run the football, obviously, but a game like today where the Vikings were going to come with all those exotic blitzes trying to stop the run, they were going to have to throw to set up the run, and that's what they did. Brock Purdy came out through his first 5 passes, but when you're throwing more often behind an offensive line that's not great in pass protection, your receivers have to separate. And when you're looking at separation, you are relying on your X-wide receiver first and foremost. That's why the 49ers paid Brandon Ayuk all that money. He's got to separate as the X receiver to open other things up, especially if they don't have Christian McCaffrey helping buoy some of the separation with his routes out of the backfield, and McCaffrey's a gravitational force. Brandon Ayuk was MIA for the vast majority of this game. We finally started hearing from him a little bit down the stretch, but this was mainly Deebo Samuel and George Kittle with the 1 4th down completion from Ayuk to Jawan Jennings. That was a beautiful pass, but the 49ers are not getting enough separation right now from, and production, just period, from their X receiver. And it caused this to be a game where they had to work for every single first down that they got. Purdy ended up throwing for over 300 yards. I thought he played a solid game. We'll talk about the interception in a second. Then he had that really bizarre play where the ball slipped out of his hand. But Purdy, for the most part, was fine, but he's working an uphill battle against a defense that's blitzing a whole heck of a lot, against a line that isn't that great at pass protection with receivers who aren't separating all too much. And yes, this was a problem throughout much of the Super Bowl as well. 49ers need to make sure that they start generating some separation. I get Brandon Ayuk's got to probably play into some sort of shape. That's going to be a big part of this. Christian McCaffrey will help when he returns, if and when he does return, but that's not going to be for a while. So the 49ers have to make do until then. The way that they made do against the Jets was by just stampeding the Jets with the power run. They did as much stampeding as they could today with Jordan Mason. He had another 100-yard performance, and Brock Purdy threw for 300 yards on top of that. But there were just too many mistakes outside of that for this offense to overcome without having at least part of this game set up for downhill. So they definitely need more separation. The mistakes I talk about were the punt block at the start. I don't know whose fault that was. It might have been Robert Beal's fault for not picking up the rusher, but I'm not going to single anybody out until we're absolutely sure. Mitch Wishnowsky, for some reason, didn't touch the returner down, but the 49ers defense held in that regard. Then there was the 97-yard touchdown. 49ers decided to go for it on fourth down before that score, and they were not able to convert. I don't blame San Francisco for their decision on that play. I like the aggressiveness. I know Kyle Shanahan went for multiple fourth downs in this game, but I think that they weren't counting on the Vikings turning around and throwing a 97-yard touchdown pass. And I don't know if Kyle Shanahan was counting on his defense trying to cover Jefferson with two safeties and no cornerbacks on the play. At the end of the day, they certainly would have liked those 3 points at the very end of the game, in a game that they lost by 6 and they couldn't recover an onside kick, but that's just how it goes sometimes. So San Francisco's got to move forward with a focus on just getting into shape offensively. You need more separation from somebody like Brandon Ayuk. I think that some holding penalties early in the run game, there was one on Deebo Samuel, hurt their cohesiveness offensively. I mean, this was a 400-yard performance from the 49ers, but didn't yield enough points to reflect that 400-yard performance. So it's going to be critical to just find some flow offensively, find a way to make sure that the yards turn into points, and they're going to have to turn around and really go back to the drawing board defensively, because Fred Warner was really the 49ers' only star on that side of the ball. Nick Bosa did have 2 sacks, but I think that Sam Darnold ran into one of those sacks for the 49ers. Looked like he had some room moving upfield, but Sam Darnold was just decided to run sideways right into Nick Bosa. Next week, 49ers take on the Rams. It's going to be a divisional matchup. It's going to be at SoFi before they return home to Levi's Stadium to take on the New England Patriots and then the Arizona Cardinals. So it's a long run, a lot of winnable games obviously still on the schedule for the 49ers. They will remain favored in the rest of them. Sky definitely isn't falling, but a lot of deficiencies that the 49ers need to address were definitely exposed in this game. And I think that those start with the defensive side of the ball outside of Fred Warner. Just the run defense was too porous, and there are way too many third and longs given up. Remember, it's only the second game in defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen's coordinating career. That's very, very important to emphasize. Also, the 49ers in this one, they were playing on a short week, but they better get used to it. They're playing on a lot of short weeks this year, and they're also playing against teams with a net rest advantage against them. That was one thing San Francisco wasn't happy about when the schedule came out, but that's just the way that it is. Today was one such instance, and the 49ers were not able to overcome it. Anyway, they're 1-1 with another one coming next week against the Rams. I'm headed to the locker room. We'll talk to you guys soon.